Good morning, dear students. I welcome you to this session of information security. In this section, we'll be able to learn security mechanisms which were left in the previous lecture, network security model, the cryptography, cryptanalysis, and the attacks on various cryptanalysis techniques. So we have two types of security mechanisms. See, there are two types of security mechanisms. One is specific security mechanisms and another is pervasive security mechanisms. Now, what does specific security means? Actually, I'll write the short form SSM. These mechanisms have been defined in the protocol layers of the security architecture. Specific to the protocol layers to provide certain kind of security services. To provide certain kind of security services. Specific to protocol layers of the security architecture to provide certain kind of security services. Now, pervasive security mechanisms are the general security mechanisms. They are not specific to any protocol. They are the general security mechanisms which are devised by the organization for itself. I hope I am clear. I repeat, there are two types of security mechanisms. First is specific security mechanisms, another is pervasive security mechanisms. Specific security mechanism says that these security mechanisms are specific to the protocol layer to provide certain kind of security services. But pervasive security mechanisms are the general security mechanisms which are used to provide the general security, and they are made by the company itself or the organization itself for their own security. Fine. So these are your. Now we will do specific security mechanisms. Then later on we will do pervasive security mechanisms. So first is your encipherment. As the word makes clear, encipherment is basically to convert the plain text into the ciphertext using certain mathematical calculations or by using encryption techniques or by using encryption techniques. So converting the plain text into the ciphertext using the certain mathematical calculations or by using the encryption technique, that is called encipherment. So what does that mean? Your plain text is a text which is understood by the human beings. Converting it into ciphertext means you will apply certain mathematical algos on this plain text, deploy some encryption technique, and after that send the data over the transmission channel over the internet, and after encryption the plain text will be converted to ciphertext. After encryption, after applying the mathematical calculations, the plain text will be converted to the ciphertext. After that, it will be transmitted over the internet. And on the receiver side, this process is reversed. It is known as decryption. Decryption means converting the ciphertext into the plain text. Here, in this process, PT is converted to CT, that is ciphertext. Here, received ciphertext is converted back into the plain text. That the process is called decryption, and it is being read by the receiver itself. Right? So plain text is converted, and plain text sends the sender sends the plain text to the encryption, and the text is encrypted. It is transmitted over the internet, then it is decrypted and it is read by the receiver. Encryption and decryption algorithm, where we apply the mathematical calculations. For using the mathematical calculation, we make one key. That this key will be used to encrypt the algo or decrypt the algo. For example, I tell you, for example, ABC. If I say +3 is the key, That means your alphabet will be displaced by 3 characters. So A, B, C, D. So this is first alphabet, second, 3, and 4. 1 plus 3 is 4. So A will be encrypted as D. Then B will be encrypted as E and C will be encrypted as F. So DEF is the cipher text for the plain text ABC. Now on the receiver side, DEF is received by the receiver. It will deploy the key -3. It will deploy the key as -3. It will deploy the key as -3 and D will be decrypted as A because 4 minus 3 is 1. So D will be decrypted as A and A will be decrypted as B and F will be decrypted as C. This is just an example. We will learn so many encryption technique in the coming lectures where we will see how to encrypt and decrypt. Fine. So this is a general diagram to show you what is encipherment. Here, the sender is having the plain text and plain text is converted to ciphertext using some key. Keys are nothing but the mathematical formulas which we apply so that this text should not be readable by the person who is accept the receiver. That means if somebody is sitting here as a hacker, he should not be able to read the message. He should not be able to read the message which is being transmitted between the sender and the receiver. Then this message will go to the receiver where it will perform the decryption. It will convert that ciphertext into the plain text using that particular key. So this is called encipherment. This is called encipherment. Now next is, see, the key which is generated in encipherment is the most critical unit of this entire process. Because if the key will be actually assessed by the, if a hacker get the access to key along with the plain text or along with the ciphertext, actually basically hacker do have the information. Hacker, see, I tell you one thing. This is the sender, this is the receiver. Now sender sends the crypted text over the ciphertext over the transmission channel. That means ciphertext is being transmitted by the sender to the receiver. Now, if hacker has the access to this ciphertext, hacker has the access to this ciphertext. But if he will get the access of key along with the ciphertext, suppose I've sent +3, this key has the access to the hacker. Now ciphertext along, suppose I have sent the -3 key to the receiver along with the ciphertext. If hacker have the access to -3 key and ciphertext both, he will be able to decode the message which is being transmitted from the sender to the receiver. So keys are the most critical unit. So we have to use other techniques also. We can also use steganography. It is also called art of hiding text in images. You write some text, put some image on it, send to the receiver. The receiver will pull off the image and will receive the text. This is called steganography and it is also the part of encryption. Okay. Next is a digital signature. What is its objective? First, it assures the identity of the entity or identity of the user or sender or receiver. Second, it assures the data integrity. Now, how does this happen using the digital signature? Digital signature means to electronically verify the message whichever we are sending. Fine. So I'll not go into much detail because we'll be doing this in unit 4 of your syllabus. So for example, this is a text which is to be sent by the sender to the receiver. Fine. This is a text which is to be sent. What sender will do? It will sign this document using some key, and this key will not be in the form of, a small form. It would be a message. This key would be a message. So the sender will send this text plus message in the ciphered form, or the sender will send this text plus message in the encrypted form to the receiver. Receiver, after opening this message, opening this text, will first see the message, whatever it is given. Then it knows that this is the sign of receiver. It already knows because the keys have been already shared. So by opening this message, it will check whether the person who has sent the message is the original sender. After going for this message, he will look into this message and match this key with his own key and will confirm that this is the actual sender who has sent me this message. Okay, so this is called assurance of the identity of the sender. Second, if this message is scrambled, or scrambling is actually the ciphertext. If this message is manipulated on the way, if this text is manipulated on the way, then this message will get corrupted. If any bit is being modified by the hacker by capturing this text, this message will get corrupted. And once the receiver gets this message, he knows that this message has been modified by someone, so it will discard this message. So that means data integrity. If the data is modified, this message is going to be disturbed, this message is going to be disrupted, and the receiver will come to know that this message has been modified on the way. So this is how digital signatures are appended to the message which is being sent, and they are verified by the receiver by using that message only. After that, the text is accepted or rejected. If this message is okay, then the message will be accepted, or text will be accepted. And if this message is modified somewhere, this entire text block is rejected. So this is called digital signature. Next is access control. I told you in the previous lecture that there is two types of access control. One is physical access control, another is logical access control. So this defines the rights of the user, different users at the different positions of the organization. For example, you as a developer cannot have the access to the admin part. And if you try to access it, that means you are violating the security. Simple. And if some management person is there, he has all the rights to look into all the servers. Fine. So he can look. And if he's denied from any service, that means it is violation of his access right. That means after entering the organization, who has right to access what? For example, I as a developer do not have access to database files. For example, I'm just saying, but I'm just getting the access of database server and try to modify those database files. So that means I am violating my access control. I am violating the rights which have been provided to me. Okay, so this is called access control, and the server always denies you the access based on the access control. For example, I already have given you the example that whenever you try to open the banking services, suppose you are not having the demat account, so you cannot have the access to demat account before opening it. That means you are not the legitimate user to access the demat account of anyone without opening of your own, or you have the password or login of the other person. So that's why we don't have the access and we are denied. For example, if I put the login customer ID of my banking site, but I put the wrong password, the access is denied to me. That means I'm not allowed to access because I don't have the right password. That means my access right will be, my security is not compromised. Okay, so that is called the access control. Next is data integrity. There is some text. The entire text, for this text, there is one checked value. This I will tell you how to calculate this checksum value. The checksum value is generated for this text. The checksum value is generated for this text. Now, this checksum value along with this text is transmitted to the receiver. Okay. And receiver has this text as well as the checksum value. Okay. Now, the receiver will calculate its own checksum value for the same text. Receiver will calculate its own checksum value for the entire text. For the entire text. And if the checksum value which was calculated by the receiver matches with the checksum value sent by the sender, that means data has not been modified on the way. That means data is integral. That means whatever the data is being sent by the sender is received by the receiver and it is in the original form. There is no modifications which have been made to this data during the transmission over the internet. I repeat, data integrity, there is a text. Along with that, there goes one checksum value, and this value is being transmitted over the internet, and the text is received by the receiver. Then checksum value is again calculated by the receiver for the same text, and the receiver will match this his own checksum value with the checksum value which was sent by the sender. If both checksum values matches, that means the text which was sent by the sender to the receiver is as it is, what the text is being sent by the sender to the receiver, and it is not being modified on the way. It is not being modified on the way. Next is authentication exchange. This is my fifth point. So authentication exchange means verifying the identities of the sender and receiver. Verifying the identity of the sender and the receiver both. See, two cases happen. If sender sends the data to wrong receiver, that means it violates the security. If wrong sender sends the data to right receiver, it will also violate the security. Sender sends the data to wrong receiver. This violates the security. Wrong sender sends the data to right receiver. Sender sends the data to wrong receiver. This also violates the security. And wrong sender sends the data to right receiver. This also violates the security. Because here the data will be sent in wrong hands. Here the wrong data will be sent to the right hands. Fine. So this will violate the security. Now, how the sender and receiver will verify their identities? I tell you one thing. Sender will send the data through the internet. To the receiver, because receiver will receive the data from the internet. Now what happens, as you know, router is responsible to send the data or to forward the data from one router to the another, and finally it will be received by the receiver. This is router 1, router 2, router supposedly 0, which is being connected to the sender. That means when sender sends the data, it should also acknowledge that the data has been sent to the neighboring router. Fine, neighboring router is R0. R0 will pass the data to R1, R1 will pass the data to R2, and receiver will get the data from router 2. Now, sender and receiver receives the data from the router. Fine. Now, router amongst themselves also ensure that they have received the data from their neighbors. For example, router 2 should ensure that it has received the data from router 1. Router 1 also ensures that data has been received from router 0. And how these know that these are neighbors of each other? Because routers on regular intervals, routers on regular intervals exchange the hello messages between them to ensure that they are participating in the transmission. To ensure that they are participating in the transmission. This is how the data is being exchanged between the sender and the router, sender and the receiver through the number of routers. And both of them ensures whatever the data is being sent through the router and whatever the data is being received by the receiver is through the neighboring router. And the router amongst themselves also ensures that they keep on exchanging the hello messages on the regular intervals so that they can tell they are the neighbors of each other. Okay, they can tell the neighbors of each other. See, next is traffic padding. This is again very interesting. Traffic padding. Suppose A is sending the data to B. A is sending the data to B on the internet. This is a transmission channel which is on the internet. Okay. A is sending. A has made the connection with B. It is transmitting the packets to B over the internet. These are the packets which are being transmitted from A to B over the internet. Now there is sitting a third person, suppose B, who is listening to this conversation, or who is observing the traffic which is sent from A to B. A knows it, so it is sending the packets in the encrypted form. A knows it and A is sending the packets to B in encrypted form. Now, for example, A has delayed its data. A has no more data to send. So it is waiting when the data will be available and it will send to B. That means the channel is being established. I repeat, the channel is being established. The connection is being established between A and B. The channel is being established between A and B. But no data transmission is taking place. Between A and B. Now what happens? D will get a chance to send its own packets which may be there, which may go to B and capture the packets which are there in B. Means it can send some unwanted information, unauthorized information to gather the information from B. It sends some packets, monitoring packets to get the information from B. That means he can send its own packet to B. To avoid this thing, to avoid the unnecessary intervention of the hacker on this transmission channel, what A will do, it will send the dummy stream of packets to the B. That means they are not actual packets, but they are dummy packets which will not have any impact on the transmission which is being going on between A and B. It will not have any impact on the data packets which are being sent from A to B. So this is called traffic padding, inserting the dummy bits on the transmission channel while there is no transmission of packets. While there is no transmission of actual data packets. while there is no transmission of actual data packets. That is called traffic padding. So this process avoids the unnecessary intervention of any third party whatsoever is sitting and observing or listening to this transmission. And whatsoever it is any person who is observing or listening to this transmission, that is called traffic padding. Okay. Next is called notarization. Notarization, I already told you once. So, notarization is there when A and B are transmitting the data. A is transmitting data to B or B is transmitting the data to A. Listen carefully. A is transmitting data to B and B is transmitting the data to A. Two-way channel is there. So there arises some conflict between A and B. There arises some conflict between A and B. So third party, trusted third party, trusted third party comes into the play to resolve the conflict between A and B. Trusted third party is there to resolve the conflicts between A and B. So this process is called notarization. This process is called notarization. Whenever there is a conflict between the sending party and receiving party, and third party is called to resolve the conflict between the A and B or the sending and receiving party, this process is called notarization. This process is known as notarization. Fine. Next, see, I tell you how this. I'll give you an example of it. Just wait. See, A has sent some money to B. Suppose 10,000 electronically. A has sent 10,000 rupees to B electronically. A says it has sent. B refuses that it has received. A says that it has sent 10,000 rupees to B and B refuses that it has not received. B is refusing to accept that it has received the rupees. Now, how A will ensure that A has sent and B will ensure that he has not received? Then the third party, that is your bank, will come into the picture. This bank is trusted by A and B both. This bank is trusted by A and B both. Now, A will say that bank will ensure that A has transferred the money to B on so and so date. Okay. And it will also ensure that the money which has been debited from the account of A is credited to the account of B on so and so date. And it will say B, please check your account on so and so date that 10,000 rupees have been added or credited to your account. Please check. Then B will see that it has been credited. Okay. That means this process is called notarization because A and B will trust the bank both. Fine. So this process is called notarization. In case of websites, there is one protocol called HTTP, another is HTTPS. In today's world, normally all the sites which are carrying the financial transaction, whenever you write HTTP on the browser link, it automatically converts it into the HTTPS. That means Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. To achieve this secure S word, there are certain certifying authorities, CA, which allocates certificates to ensure that whatever the transaction will be made on this site will be secured and it will be in the encrypted manner. For example, if I go for HDFC, right? As you open HDFC net banking, there will be a HTTPS in the browser itself. That means that certificate authority has given the authority certificate to HDFC that whatever the transaction which will be made on the HDFC site will be secure. Will be secure. Now, when you transfer the data from A to B or transfer the money from A to B, then this is carried out in the encrypted manner. They ensure that utmost security has been adopted to ensure that the data has been transferred securely from any party to any party. So these CAs are available on the websites. You can even check those CAs on the particular website. If the CA certificates of that particular website is okay, that means you can be sure that whatever the financial transaction you are making on this particular website is will be carried in the encrypted manner. Will be carried in the encrypted manner. So this entire process is called notarization. And these certificates are called SSL certificates. Secure Socket Layer certificates to ensure that your transaction will be carried on the secured channel in the encrypted manner. These certificates are called SSL certificates, which ensures that your transaction will be carried over the transmission channel in the encrypted form. So this is called notarization. Next is pervasive security mechanisms. Pervasive, it is not written. Pervasive security mechanisms. So first is trusted functionality. The organization, I told you, they are not specific to any protocol. They are generally formed by the organization for its own security. So first is trusted functionality. What does this mean? The organization makes some security policies for the organization. Okay, security policies for the organization, and it gives the access right, that is rights to access the resources of the company. Resources of the company, of the organization, and that right could be the physical access to the resources or logical access to your file, to your web server or the database server. Right? Now, whenever an event means whenever you make some access, that is called an event. Whenever the person in the organization makes some access, it is called an event. For example, you are downloading some file from the server, that is also an event, right? So that event is carried out whenever you make any action in the either physical access or in the logical access, that is called an event. Whenever an event is carried out, to ensure that that event is permissible or not permissible, that event is permissible or allowed or not allowed, is defined by the security policy. Is defined by the security policy. So that means there is a trust on the security policy that nobody can violate this security policy whenever any event is being carried out in the organization by any of the employee of the organization. So this is called a trusted functionality. Okay. For example, I try to access a web page which I am not allowed to, which have been blocked by the firewall. Now, what do you, where the message which you will read is not reachable, website not reachable, or website blocked. Okay, so that is called trusted function. That is called trusted functionality. Firewall is always there to filter the traffic which is coming into the organization or going out of the organization. So whenever you are locating any website, that means you are fetching the data from the outside world to the inside world. It may be allowed to you, it may not be allowed to you. So in order to verify that event is permissible or not permissible, it must conform the security policy and hence the trusted functionality. And next is your security labels. The security labels are attached to the files like confidential, top secret, highly confidential. Fine. These are the labels which could be attached to your logical file, and their access is denied to almost every employee, and the access is limited to few persons in the organization. If you try to access this information, it will give you the file is confidential, you do not have access to it. It's a top secret file, you don't have access to it. It's a highly confidential file, you don't have the access to it. This is how security labels are being appended to the various logical files which are there in the network. Then you have event detection. Event detection. For example, there is a one person who hacks the server of the bank, fine, and he transfers the amount from any, suppose X account to his own account. Suppose his own name is Z, and from X person's account he makes the transfer to his own account. That means some event has happened. Some event has happened. So whenever any event is there or data security breach is there, fine, the events which are there, they are recorded. The events which are being carried out, they are recorded. So the event is allowed, permissible, or not allowed. The event is allowed or not allowed. For example, the person tries to hack the server. Now he has a username and the password. That means it is the legitimate user. Fine. So maybe so he is allowed. But if some security breach is found and if, there is a suspicion that that is not trustworthy to X or not trustworthy to bank, then it will say you are not allowed to assess this. You are not allowed to make the transfer. Fine. So that's why you are being told that you should not disclose your ATM pins. You should not disclose your net banking passwords to anyone so that this kind of breaches could not happen. And you receive the uh, dual factor authentication. You receive the message that you are going to transfer this amount of money from your account to this body's account. If you say yes, only then it is allowed. Otherwise, it is not allowed. So this is kind of event detection. Whenever any transaction is made, you receive the message onto your phone whether the event is allowed or not allowed. If you put the OTPs, then the event will be carried out. Otherwise, the event will not be carried out. Similarly, whenever you make shopping on any website, so when you are being taken away to the gateway of the payment gateway, when you are redirected to the payment gateway, then what happens? You give the OTP, only then the amount is deducted from your bank account. Otherwise, it will say the transaction has failed due to some other reason. That means the event has been detected, that the event is being carried. The financial transaction is being made onto your bank account. Financial transaction is being made onto your bank account, which is allowed or which is not allowed. If you put the OTP, then it is allowed, otherwise it is not allowed. This is kind of security mechanism which is followed, and this is called event detection. Now next is security audit. Security audit. the various events are recorded in the database, right? Or audit logs, we have studied in the database management, when you have done that log based recovery and kind of thing. So that means all the data, whichever is being assessed, is recorded in the log, right? And these logs are saved onto your server, that who has assessed what at what time. When date and timestamp is there. For example, I say Sejal has assessed the DBMS server. Sejal has assessed so and so file, suppose abc.dbms SQL file at so and so time. That means if something has happened after that to abc.sql, that means who is responsible? Sejal is said to be responsible. After inquiry, it may be there that she is innocent, right? But initially, if something has happened to this, then she may be there. Uh, she may be questioned for it, right? So if database leads to the inconsistent state, then from the security audit, we will try to analyze when these events has happened, who has done this, why this has led to the database in the inconsistent state, and it will help us to recover from the position where it has been a deadlock. There is a security audit recovery. Once your system has been blocked by anyone for any reason, then logs are basically helpful for finding the culprit, that who has made the problems and how to recover from it. Security mechanism will recover uh, with the help of logs. Then we can bring the data to the one state previous, before the collapse has happened, before any factory incident has happened, we can recover from it. So this is your security recovery, and these are called the pervasive security mechanisms. So these are various security mechanisms: specific security, encipherment, hiding or covering the data using some mathematical algorithms or formulas. Digital signature, the sender can electronically sign the data and receiver can electronically verify the data. This I have told you how. Access control, a variety of mechanisms that enforces the access right to the resources. Who can access and what is supposed to access. Data integrity, to ensure the integrity of data unit or the stream of data units, that this data has not been modified or altered on the way, or during the transmission. Authentication exchange, two entities exchange some messages to prove the identity to each other that they are the right parties who are involved in the transmission. Then traffic padding, the insertion of dummy bits into the gaps to frustrate the traffic analysis attempt. Then routing control, selecting and continuously changing the routes between the sender and receiver to prevent the opponent from eavesdropping. Next is notarization, the use of trusted third party to ensure that sure and control the communication. So this I have explained to you. Then the pervasive security mechanisms are trusted functionality, security labels, event detection, secure audit trails, and security recovery. So this I have explained to you all. Now one is left, I think, that is your routing control. So I'll explain it. One specific mechanism was left, routing control. See, the sender has to send the data to the receiver over the internet, and router is a device which is used to send the data from the sender to the internet, a connection of routers. The connecting routers can send the data from the sender to receiver. Now, for example, sender is sending the packets to through R1, R2, and R3. See, whenever you leave the packet on the internet, the routing control is not in our hand. The routers will choose their route according to themselves. As their live locations are on, they'll exchange the messages and send the messages from one router to the another. Now you find that there is some data breach on this route R1, R2, and R3. See, every time you are getting a call from the receiver that I'm not getting the right package. That means you are in a doubt that the packets are there is a data breach on the way from R1 to R3. Now what happens? Source will send the packet and also defines the route. Source will send the packet and also defines the route that instead of R1, R2, and R3, R1, R5, and R3 is followed so that there should not be any breach. Right? So it will get the confirmation from the receiver after sending the packet from R1, R5, and R3 whether the packets which have been received are correct or not. Then it will send all the packets to the same path and ask the router 1 to follow the path from R1, R5, and R3. That means it will trace the path of the data which is to be sent from the sender to the receiver. It will give the packets to the router to be sent and also specifies the path through which the data is to be sent, because it has some doubt that on R1, R2, R3 there may be a eavesdropping. Eavesdropping का मतलब होता है, its meaning is spying. Its meaning is spying. Spying on the way. That is called, eavesdropping means like kind of detective who is sitting there, who is listening to your messages all the times, and it is just traffic analysis kind of thing is being done by the hacker. So it is modifying the messages and sending it to R. So this is called data breach, and it happens on the route R1, R2, and R3. So what sender will say to R1 that my packets will go from R1, R5, and R3 only. So it is sender is basically tracing the route from where the packets have been received and where it has to be sent. Okay, and how they will be sent. This is called routing control. Dear students, thank you so much for this session. And if you have any doubts or any questions, we can discuss it on WhatsApp. You can put your queries to me on the WhatsApp. So thank you so much.